I had felt experiences with no scientific understanding of what the heck was happening to me, where this process in 9 weeks, where we were able to, I'm going to use these words, bust through those grantis, and it was profound to me. And even after all these years of dance and yoga and everything, I'd never had that experience, and I wanted to create a way to still stay in the joy that I had learned, still stay in the joy with joyful music and joyful, not punishing, and get in there and bust those grantis on a regular basis.
Welcome to Jess on the Mountain, a podcast about yoga, chakras, and becoming your own guru. I'm Jess Goulding. I am so excited today to have as our guest, Dr. Deb Kern. She's going to take us on her personal history from Western medicine towards Eastern thinking and the beautiful combination that she has created through her thousands and thousands of hours of learning and experiencing, searching and growing, called PranaShakti Dance. It is a beautiful way to shake things up and access the subtle body in ways that help you move through blockages and expand your awareness. If you're interested in continuing with your own chakra journey, I encourage you to either grab that Chakra Savvy Quickie Quiz, 3 questions to get you started, or the Chakra Check-In Self-Assessment. Both of these resources will lead you to a video guide that I provide and some of my favorite tools for accessing and beginning to balance each of the 7 chakras, wherever you need to begin. You can get that on my podcast page, jessgoulding.com/podcast, as well as the show notes. And now I bring you Dr. Deb Kern. Thank you, Deb, Dr. Deb Kern, for joining me today.
So happy to be here.
We are on the mountain where we are climbing up the liberating current. So where this falls in this podcast season is right after chakra 3. So we have essentially delighted in our body. We have come into our center of feelings and sensuality and explored a little bit of our will, our self-esteem. And so you're the perfect person to bring on at this point because we continue to lift our energies upwards. And one of the things that helps me do that the most is going to your dance class.
Aww.
And this is how I met you. Your dance is called PranaShakti Dance. And I can't wait to get into talking about that. First, though, I'd love for you to just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do. And then we're going to get into the dancing.
Okay. Well, so funny. Just before we turned record on, we were talking about our kids. So I'm going to say I'm a mom. I have a bonus son who's 36 and a bonus daughter through his marriage. And then my son, birth son, is 26. So that's just top on my mind. I'm a mom in a different phase of motherhood than you're in. And so it's so interesting, the phases we go through. Professionally, I started in nursing in the 70s. And my dream always was to help people be healthy and well. This has been my overriding since I was a kid. I thought nursing would be the path. Once we started working in the hospital, I realized in my young mind, it seemed to me that what was happening is I felt like I was standing at the bottom of a cliff, waiting till people jumped off, and then was helping them get better. And I wanted to work at the top of the cliff, like build a fence there and say, hey, don't jump. Like I wanted to do, it didn't exist. Prevented things didn't exist, but my heart was there. So I was on a search and I ended up working in preventive medicine in the early 80s, thinking that's it. And I was teaching aerobic dance and race walking back in the 80s. And I thought, this is it. This is how we help people be healthy and well. And then I dawned on me that it was like a wolf in, how it goes? Well, wolf in sheep's clothing, because what we were doing in the preventive medicine center is we would go do these health risk appraisals, they were called. And we would go into a corporation and we would put them on a bicycle and measure their VO2 max. We would draw their blood and look at their cholesterol levels and their blood sugar and their dry Gs, all these things, and take their blood pressure and their weight, all the biometrics. Then we would go back in with this big pamphlet and say, well, your body is chronologically 38, but based on all this data, it thinks you're 93. And based on this, you have X% a chance of dying of a heart attack in the next year and X% a chance. We basically were scaring them to death. And in the beginning, I didn't catch on. I thought we were really helping these people. However, after the second or third year of returning to the same group, I would sit down with their new results, which were worse than the year before. And they would come in like with their head down and their tail between their legs, and the guilt and shame were palpable. And again, this is long before the research that we have now about emotions and how they affect our immune system. I just knew deep in my heart that, wait a minute, if they feel bad about themselves, we're not helping them. And look at the results, they're actually worse. So now I'm going to have to tell them the news that they're worse than last year. So again, I went on a search again, and I meandered around. I ended up going back to get a PhD in health sciences, thinking that if I could get it here, I'm going to get it in my doctoral program. And, there's a joke about PhDs. It's where you study more and more about less and less until you know everything about nothing. That's sort of what was happening to me. I was just getting narrowed in on health risk factors and rah, 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 rah. And then one day, and I was teaching aerobics. I was running the aerobic program. I was teaching step aerobics and high impact and low impact aerobics. And I was teaching women's health also to put my way through school. And one day, I took a yoga class. You may not know this story, but here it comes. So I came to my first yoga class, and tears just started flowing out of my eyes. I couldn't understand why. And I felt like I knew the next move before the teacher said it. Like my body was all ready. I remember distinctly moving into pigeon pose, just my body doing it before she guided. Like it's the thing my body wanted next. So it was my first exposure to, whoa, there's something here. And I'm not punishing my body like step aerobics or race walking. I'm enjoying being in my body. But the joy was so new that I wept. I wept from the joy. I know we're talking about delight this month, and I think that's why I'm telling this story. And then just one more story is, in the process of getting my certifications to stay an aerobics teacher, I went to a big conference, and they put in my packet a class called NIA, which stands for Neuromuscular Integrative Action, the NIA technique. And I had the similar experience. I walked in, we started flowing in movement. Now I had been teaching very linear, punishing type movements, and this was foreign to me. And again, the tears came. And so those two experiences, the yoga experience and the NIA experience, took me on a long, continual journey that I'm still on the journey of learning and learning. So I lived at Satchidananda Ashram to study yoga. I took 4 levels of the NIA technique training. I took 1,000 hours in Tantra, Ayurveda, all kinds of things. I keep going, I keep learning, because what I've realized is, back to the things I was looking for didn't exactly exist in the Western systems. I appreciate what the Western systems offer, but they didn't have what I was looking for. So I've had to sort of create my path. So hope it wasn't too long, but that's the story.
It's so inspiring just to hear you describe what it is just to be searching and searching. And I love that you mentioned and you're still searching. Like, I think a lot of times we think there's an arrival spot, like the top of the mountain or whatever it is. And really you get there and you're like, wow, awesome. Now let me see what it's like when I go back down and then go back up. And
There's more. And I experience it now, not so much as an up, down, but more as an expansive outwardness, almost like it's infinite, sort of like our energy field. We can sense to a degree, many of us can sense our energy field and there's more. Like there's more. There's the energy field that perhaps I don't even have the language for it. I have the sensations and the experiences of it that there's my energy field. And as I expand, I come into infinite energies. Where do I end and they begin? I can't tell you. I really can't tell you. And as I expand, there's more learning. So yeah, so I'm in it. I'm always in it.
It sounds like you have this sensation or this inner knowing that pulls you along, and then the world meets you with some structure and explanation or some tangible things to take that gives form to this broader understanding that you have, this bigger.
Exactly. That's perfectly articulated. That's it.
Yeah. I think that is a big part of the journey, is just being pulled along and then finding the bus stops along the way where we need to get off. Hold up. Let me learn this for a little while. Let me learn this. And then you can get back on. I think we're starting to mix a lot of metaphors, or I tend to do that.
I do too, but I think I really understand things in metaphor.
I feel the same every time I talk to you. You just have all this wisdom to give over. And you do this in conversation, and you do this just while you're talking, while we're dancing. So it kind of really goes in the cells.
Yes.
It's what I love about teaching yoga as well. And then having just a little bit of a thematic chatter in the background, so that I think it gets in there a different way. It kind of goes in on a different frequency.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. I think we bypass some of the gatekeepers of analysis and past experience that would close the door to whatever might be happening. So you kind of get past the gatekeepers. Go straight into the flow.
Yeah. And they tend to quiet down when we really settle the breath and change our system through movement, breath. Those are the two main avenues that I see that allow the meditation to come in. So speaking of movement, I'd love to hear you talk about PranaShakti, how it came, what it does.
So over the years, I taught many different movement modalities, and because of my own personal needs, I began really just letting everything blend inside of me and come out the way that really helped me. And the final piece where I made a big shift in how I taught dance, let me say what I learned. I want to honor what I learned. What I learned from Nia, Nia talks about the joy of movement. And I came to that from a very punishing Western style. So it had such an important place in my learning and my heart. So for listeners, look that up if there's a class near you. I love the Nia classes. And so that was at the beginning. And then as I continued, I took quite a bit of Kundalini yoga. And of course, I had the Hatha yoga training as well. And I spent 9 weeks in the jungle of Bali. This is where the big shift happened with the Tantrika, which not the Western style Tantra, but the old school style Shaivite Tantra, where her focus was using sound, mostly sound and mantra to break up blockages in our bodies called granthis. And I know you've had an episode about granthis already, so I won't go back into that, just to say that there are 3 major areas in the body. I think of them like subway stations where all the lines crisscross. And so there are 3 of them, one between kind of ish between the 2nd and 3rd chakra, one sort of ish between the 3rd and 4th, about in here, and one about at the throat. They're not the chakras. We have 72,000 nadis, these lines of energy through our bodies, and that's where there's big crisscrosses. And I had felt experiences with no scientific understanding of what the heck was happening to me, where this process in 9 weeks, where we were able to, I'm going to use these words, bust through those granthis. And it was profound to me. And even after all these years of dance and yoga and everything, I'd never had that experience. And I wanted to create a way to still stay in the joy that I had learned, still stay in the joy with joyful music and joyful, not punishing, and get in there and bust those granthis on a regular basis, sort of like flossing your teeth regularly rather than waiting to go to the dentist to have them bust it all out of there. I wanted to help us, me and my community. How can we dance in a way that systematically goes in for those 3 areas? And so that's how I started experimenting. And over the years, created a system so that I have it clearly in my mind, an order that I go in. And when I teach teachers, I teach them, this is what I do. And it works every time. It works every time. I'm just delighted. And it can be through so many different styles of music and themes. There could be many themes, all body sizes, all abilities. We can get there. So that's what I do.
Yeah, it's so beautiful as someone who participates. And as a former dancer, I went in and I healed so much because it is so free and so beautiful. And yet there is structure. I mean, we do steps. There's steps that anybody can do, whether in the mind or in the body. But it's what we each bring to it. It's the meaning, it's the purpose behind it. So it's not performative. It's very intuitive, and it feels very healing. And you talk about the chakras a lot as we're dancing. What are we accessing? What are we sweeping? A lot of conversations about the energy of each area of the body. As the movement is going on, how are we accessing what is subtle while we're moving the physical? And I recognize those 2 things move simultaneously. And here's where I'm coming from. I was recently doing some reading about the subtle body and the chakras. And this author was saying that you can't access the chakras physically. You can access them through meditation and mantra. But when we are dancing, we are moving these subtle body lines. And I'm wondering, have you been able to figure out what's going on? How are we accessing the subtle through the physical when some would say you can't?
Yeah, I can understand theoretically what you were reading. It makes sense to me what you're reading. I think this is happening to me. The older I get, the more I see everything is a paradox. I see everything as paradox. So bear with me. And this is the metaphor that comes to me. And that would be the metaphor of states, the state of energy from from ice cube to water to gas to steam. And so just considering the body as the matter, that we are matter, we are like the ice cube. And then as the ice expands, we become the ether, we have the energetic field. And in a sense, where Western medicine, how I was trained in nursing, we focus on changing matter with matter. And it kind of works, but it's got some problems. But what we're coming into more understanding with quantum physics and everything is that actually matter is frozen energy in a way. And so how about so you can affect one through the other? We can definitely affect matter from the energetics. What I've discovered is that since this body is congealed energy in a way, if you can even look at the atoms, they've just slowed down enough to create something, that through movement, we can go into the areas. And how I do it in dance is we go slowly. We start in with breath and we come in and start lubricating just the joints, getting a little flow going. I use heat, so movement creates heat. So with the idea of ice cubes in a way, because we're going to get in and kind of heat the areas, not just the muscles, but actually kind of create heat around those stuck energetic areas. And then I move through a process I call agitation, which is, I think of like in a washing machine agitating, but it's to kind of get those molecules shaking. And once they get moving again, there's the opportunity for liberation. So what was congealed energy can go back into the undifferentiated energetic field. And since we've already set intentions in class, personal intentions, what am I desiring to release and what am I liking more of? It's really simple. And so you send those intentions and let the energies be reconfigured in the field. And now you've got the communication from out to in to out. So, and then of course in class, after this liberation phase, we go back to integration with consciousness and bring our mind body back into what are we wanting to do now that all of that was liberated and we've moved into our own undifferentiated infinite potential space, and come back in and integrate and assimilate. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it paints a beautiful picture, and I have to say it is the experience that I have. And I'd say one of my favorite parts is the agitation.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my own exploring in my yoga classes of how to access agitation. And it's different than like a vinyasa flow. It's not that, because flows aren't agitating. They do create heat, as does standing stock still, So
Right.
I've had in my practices, we have tantrums a lot, right? That'll be
Awesome. Yeah.
that's our agitation. But I'm definitely in my teaching attempting to pull in more of this agitation idea. Yeah.
But I think what I would say is that this is such an interesting point. I remember I've been to many classes that are very, very freeform, and I love them all. So they all have a place. So for example, 5 rhythms, I took a lot of 5 rhythms classes, and there is one of the 5 rhythms is chaos. It's where you're meant to be throwing tantrums basically. And it's one of the parts of class where there's meant to be like release of the stuck areas. And what I witnessed taking it, but also witnessing others, is that pretty much everyone, including myself, when given the freedom to just shake everything loose, still avoid the areas that really need to get agitated. So the areas, we protect them unconsciously. So there is a lot of wildness, shaking the arms and the hair's going wild, but they're not moving their head. So they're not getting the neck, which is where one is. They're not getting the chest, they're not getting deep in the chest or in the pelvis. A lot of times their pelvis is pretty still. So that's why I like to direct, and the same as can happen in a yoga class. You could be in any pose and you just direct the movement, and Kundalini definitely has quite a few Kriyas that do that. So yeah, just to say, was one of the differentiations I've noticed where a lot of times people think I'm doing it, I'm liberating myself, but actually they're dancing around their held patterns still.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no, I totally see that. And that's why it can be so challenging when a body is quite locked, even in a good flow or in yoga. They are taking the pose from the outside, and yet their patterns still reside there on the inside. So the chest might still be sunken, or the hips might still be locked, which is why I love working with the chakras, because we can start to talk about that,
Exactly.
Hey, if that heart is sinking in your warrior, what are we protecting here? Is this, is it grief that's really pulling you down? Is it an old heartache, or what's in there that's causing even your warrior pose to lack a lift of the chest? So those are the questions we can ask while we're in the pose.
And it makes, I love your classes for that reason, because it makes every pose takes on so much life, which is so great. I love that.
And it's so hard to do that without instruction, without.
We can't see ourselves. This is why I have teachers. I love taking classes where I'm guided in that way. We cannot see ourselves, and we especially can't. The way we're protecting ourselves feels like us. It feels like us, so we don't see it. So yeah, we need that.
Yeah, it feels comfortable and like, no, this part's okay.
Right.
Which is probably the can that needs to be opened.
Exactly. Exactly. Every class I teach movements that I don't like, but I know they're helping me.
Oh yes, my nemesis pose for the longest time was Warrior One. Hated it, didn't want to do it. Everything made me mad. And so, of course, in every class we're having to do Warrior One until eventually we started to get along, and then eventually it is like I do Warrior One every day. It
Wow.
became, it became my daily medicine. Just to remember to stay heart open,
Uh,
and keep the legs separate. Like just all the pieces help me stabilize that foundation that there's change. Change can happen through the body, which is, again, just to kind of reiterate the point earlier, it's considered, the Anamaya kosha, the physical form, the outer layer is considered the least efficient way to get to change.
right.
And I think that in this conversation, I'm realizing maybe not.
Maybe. I would always say maybe, we have to always consider how teachings get passed down through different lineages. And I remember Swami Satchidananda pointing out, and I always want to say, any one of us who has been a part of an oral tradition, deep teachings shared, auditory, oral speaking, means that whenever we repeat it back, chances are good. I don't know what percentages is exactly how it was said. So I just want to say that it's the beauty and the challenge of being, I love my traditions have been oral spoken, Tantra tradition as well. So here we go with what I heard or understood in him speaking to us about, in particular, the vow of brahmacharya, which gets translated as celibacy. And he talked about how that was part of that is that the lower chakras were considered less than, lower nature, animal nature as less than. And again, paradox. Yes, more animal nature. And can't be separated from life. So, yes, is the body denser than the outer layers? Yes. And it's our life is being lived in these dense things. Well, he would say that the body is not really less than. It's paradoxically. So perhaps it could be these teachings might still be considering the lower vibration, because it is lower vibration. That's why we can touch it. Lower as being less capable of doing things. But how I've experienced it is that I access so much starting from the body out. I think we can go any direction. But if their body has a lot of blockages in it, my experience with students is that when the body is blocked and they're attempting to meditate even, they can't. The body has its own, it is a mind. The body sends up cravings. It sends up desires to be disturbed. It's used to adrenaline. It's used to cortisol. It's used to this. And you're telling it to sit still and it keeps acting up. And you can do the dance this way. You can continually, I've been trained in this way, continually train the animal body to sit still and be quiet. I say, okay, and what if through joy, we release a lot of the blockages, and in the release of the blockages, the cravings are go away, and in the dance, our chemistry gets balanced, and so then we sit down to breathe and meditate. How about that? That's just my idea.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's the foundation. It's chakra one is the foundation. So why would it be considered less important? One would never look at a building and say, "Oh, but the foundation is so less than."
Perfect example.
Less than the penthouse? No, that penthouse is not going to exist without that strong foundation.
That's it.
And you can look in a mirror. One can look in a mirror and go, "Oh my gosh, when I stand, I can see places that kind of collapse in on themselves." I think there's a lot of information there.
There is.
I mean, we can't just think our way into new patterns, especially if it's thinking that got us there. So if we can access all the movement and then free that up, I love the metaphor that you use in the description of this ice melt the ice is really going out to steam and then coming back together in a new way. And, maybe the hard part is it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But if we had a time-lapse camera on all the students I've seen through yoga and all the students I've watched through your class, we would be blown away.
I got chills. I just got chills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. If that's the goal, you go into the steam and you come back and put it back together through conscious choice, not through the habitual patterns that were holding you hostage. And those patterns, they can be so strong that they come back and back again. That's why we keep coming back and back again to class, with compassion and joy.
And things get rebuilt in a new way, which then the upper chakras, now you have an opportunity to speak more clearly, to speak more truthfully, to see the beauty rather than the darkness, because your chemicals have changed. Yep. And what are we but really a bag with chemicals? Jess on the Mountain is brought to you by my online course, Chakra Savvy, Reset Your Life Game Plan. It's a 7-month online deep dive into the chakras to take you from feeling unsettled, upended, and questioning your direction to feeling grounded, confident, and happy in your life by harnessing the power of the chakras. You can check it out or join the wait list at jessgoulding.com/chakrasavvy. With Chakra Savvy Reset Your Life Game Plan, you gain access to the yoga practices, breathing techniques, meditations, and lifestyle suggestions that help harmonize your system and bring you a sense of balance and ease to your everyday life. So that's at jessgoulding.com/chakrasavvy. Join the waitlist, and you'll be the first to know the next time a cohort begins.
I just have a beautiful poem that when Jess said that we were going to have this conversation, that I wanted to share. I heard this poem long ago. It's by someone named Jewel Matheson. And so this, just sit back and relax, take a deep breath in and enjoy. Just receive the words. My teacher in Bali said, if you can write a poem about something, you really understand it. So I did not write this poem. Jewel Matheson did. And I'm saying she understands it. So it's called We Have Come to Be Danced. We have come to be danced. Not the pretty dance, not the pretty pick me dance, but the claw our way back into the belly of the sacred, sensual animal dance. The unhinged, unplugged, cat is out of its box dance. The holding the precious moment in the palms of our hands and feet dance. We have come to be danced. Not the jiffy booby shake your booty for him dance, but the wring the sadness from our skin dance, the blow the chip off our shoulder dance, the slap the apology from our posture dance. We have come to be danced. Not the monkey see, monkey do dance, 1, 2, dance like you, 1, 2, 3, dance like me dance, but the grave robber, tomb stalker, tearing scabs and scars open dance, the rub the rhythm raw against our souls dance. We have come to be danced. Not the nice, invisible, self-conscious shuffle, but the matted hair flying voodoo, mama, shaman shaking ancient bones dance. The strip us from our casings, return our wings, sharpen our claws and tongues dance. The shed dead cells and slip into the luminous skin of love dance. We have come to be danced. Not the hold our breath and wallow in the shallow end of the floor dance, but the meeting of the Trinity, the body, breath, and beat dance, the shout hallelujah from the top of our lungs and thighs dance. The mother may I? Yes, you may take 10 giant leaps dance, the ollie ollie oxen free dance, the everyone can come to our heaven dance. We have come to be danced, where the kingdoms collide in the cathedral of flesh, to burn back into the light, to unravel, to play, to fly, to pray, to root in skin sanctuary. We have come to be danced. We have come.
So perfect for what you do and the gift you give to all your students. That is, PranaShakti to me is an access to that sense of dance. Thank you for being my teacher.
Oh, thank you for being my teacher. It's such a beautiful exchange.
And thank you for coming on our podcast. And thank you for being a teacher. You're a guest teacher in Chakra Savvy Reset Your Life Game Plan.
I am.
Deb comes in and does a beautiful Chakra 2 sensual dance for us to get moving in the water element, speaking of which. And we have an invitation from Deb to come and dance with her. You want to tell us about that? Where do we find
Absolutely.
you? How do we get with you?
So I currently live in Mexico, so I don't have in-person classes. So I teach on Friday mornings on Zoom. And I'd love for you to come join me some Friday morning or just sign up for that class. You always get the replay. And so you can get a free class you'll have it in the show notes here. And there'll be a discount code that's Jess, all cap letters. And when you put that in, it'll give you a class for free. So you could just come have the experience that we've been talking about. I'd really love that.
I would love it too, because I'll probably see them in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Deb, you are such a gift, and maybe you'll come on another time and we'll have more conversations like this.
I would love to. Thank you so much for this honor, Jess. Thank you.